Welcome back to another YouTuber thumbnail tutorial featuring El Hombre con la Voz. In today's video, I'm going to be teaching you fellow brothers and sisters how to make Minecraft thumbnails like iMax7, who actually has a similar style to Just Verb, with the thumbnail in this video being one of the few exceptions. This Funny Moments thumbnail, which he used just recently, is packed with rainbow galore. Rainbow borders, rainbow strokes, rainbows, rainbow. Since day one, we've gotten phenomenal feedback from these tutorial videos, which can only be found on this channel you are viewing right now. And I once again want to say a big thank you to the community. And of course, if you don't want to miss these videos in the future, make sure to like the video for more thumbnails, subscribe for weekly uploads, and follow me on Twitter and my other social medias. Now, kick back, relax, and enjoy the footage. Hasta luego. As always, we need to first open Minecraft. There's a couple of mods that we'll be using, so I'm using Forge for version 1.8. We have the custom NPCs mod and the world downloader mod. You can also use the replay mod if you like, but in this case I will not be using it. Now that Minecraft has been loaded up, we're gonna head into single player, and first of all we're gonna get the screenshot of the background. I used the world downloader mod to simply go into a Hypixel world, go into a Hypixel Skywars game, and since I have the MVP plus rank, I could select which game or map I wanted to play in Skywars. In this case I chose Aegis, and it is the map that looks like this. And over here you can see that this side island is looking beaten up. That is because I set TNT off on it on purpose to have an explosion effect in the background, and I've already taken the screenshot like that. I'm just going to do it right now. You got to time this correctly, or you can record the whole thing of the TNT getting light up, or actually in this case I'll just use a creeper. But this is basically what I did. I placed down the explosive here, set it off, and as the explosion is going off, that is when I take the screenshot. Currently I have shaders on. It is the Zeus shaders, which will be in the description as well. That's all you need to do for the background, so let us go and head into another single player world which has the custom NPC. Once again, to save time, I've already posted them up, but we need to do one final thing. First of all, we need to disable the shaders, and we need to update the skin to correspond to this new thumbnail. So we're currently on Nova Skin right now, and in this thumbnail in particular, he has a player that has a Supreme t-shirt. So I just typed in Supreme in the search over here on Nova Skin's website, and I'm just gonna Control A, and this is the skin URL. Control C to copy. We're gonna go back. We've got our NPC wand in hand, and we're going to go over here, select all, Control V to paste, and now he will have the updated skin. Now let's just go over all the adjustments I've made to him. Let's just go into the AI, go to movement, hit edit, and just copy down everything you see here. Actually, all you need to do is change rotation to manual, and that's it for that. Inventory, he just has some enchanted iron boots. For the advanced, it is set to puppet. We're gonna hit edit, and this is how the head is set up. So the X is set to 154%. Nothing on the body. The left arm is set to 131% for the X, and the Y is set to 169. The Z is set to 177%. And you can just pause the video and just take note of all of these adjustments for your NPC that you are doing right now. Just pause the video, and lastly, the right leg. Okay, now that we have everything done, now we are going to just get a screenshot. So hit F1. I'm going to take him from an angle. Always feel free to take multiple screenshots just in case you're unsure about yourself. But that's all the screenshots that we're going to need. You can minimize Minecraft. Save that just in case. We're going to open up Photoshop. I'm going to go into File, New. We're going to name this Tutorial 18. We're so close to Tutorial 20, everyone. I can't wait. Dimensions, 1920, 1080, or 1280 by 720. Depends on how much file size you have to work with. I'll just keep it at full HD. We're gonna hit OK. Alright, so we got our empty canvas. Now I'm going to get the screenshot of our background, and I'm going to select this one. So we're just gonna hold it and drag it onto here. Now this is the explosion happening. I use TNT in this case, but you can still use the creeper. I'm gonna hold Shift and Alt. It really doesn't matter in this case because we're going to zoom in a lot. And just zoom in, just keep zooming in. Hold Alt and scroll down to zoom out, and hold Shift and drag from one of the corners. And we're gonna drag it, and we are also going to rotate it a little by clicking anywhere outside of any of the corners of our screenshot and just moving it down to the right. All right, and that looks good. Remember, we want to have the top portion of the remains of the side island and some of the explosion as well. I feel like there's too much explosion, so I'm just going to drag it a little to the bottom left. Okay, that's looking good. The next thing we want to do is add a border, and I really like how iMax made this border. So we're gonna go to the rectangle tool and just drag it anyhow. It doesn't matter at all. Now we're gonna go to where it says stroke all the way up here, and we're going to set it to this one. This is the gradient icon. It goes from a dark and then slowly fades into a light. So we're gonna select that, and now we're going to select this gradient, or it doesn't really matter, just any rainbow gradient that you have. I'm just going to use this one that I made for just because. So the rainbow gradient, because that's what he uses mainly in this thumbnail. And we're gonna set the pixels to, I don't know, 10, 20, maybe even 30, 20, maybe 25. Okay, now we're gonna select the move tool, move it to one corner, hit Control T, and just drag it to the other corner. Don't need to hold Shift because it's gonna fill up the whole screen either way. Now we're going to double click this rectangle that we've made. I'm gonna give it a drop shadow, and we're gonna reduce the size a little and the spread. Now we're gonna hit OK. The last thing we're gonna do with this is to reduce the opacity or the fill. I honestly don't see a difference between the two, but I think I'm going to change the opacity. I think the opacity, the difference between that is that it has a more noticeable effect in how much you can see of whatever you're making opaque by adjusting it. So I'd say leave it at 40. 40 is a good number in this case. And once you're done, you can hit OK. Now you can see that this background is looking a bit dull. I'm not sure why, but whenever you take a screenshot from Minecraft with shaders, it always looks like the life has been sucked out of the background. So we're just gonna quickly go to the adjustments and give it a brightness and contrast. Nothing special. Turn up the contrast to 70 or 80. 70s, between the 70s and 80s. The brightness doesn't really matter. Yeah, just leave the brightness alone because it is already bright because of the shaders. And that looks a little bit better with that contrast. The next thing we're gonna do is add like this flash of light or lightning. I don't know what to call it. We're just gonna call it lightning, but I also got this from a graphics pack, or I believe one of my thumbnail makers actually gave it to me. So I'm probably just gonna, I don't know. I'll find some way to give it to you guys in a nice, reasonable fashion, but we are going to be using this, and that's why I call it lightning, because it looks like this. And I'm just gonna hold Shift and hold Alt and drag it so that it fills up the whole screen. And we can rotate it a little bit, make it bigger. Doesn't really matter. You don't have to be specific or overthink this. Well, we're gonna adjust this later though, and it's gonna be over the rectangle. Now we are also going to give this a rainbow gradient, so we're gonna double click it, go to the gradient overlay, and set it to this one. I meant this one. This is the one that I've custom made, but we will get into that later. And once you are finished, you can hit OK. And we're also going to give it a simple drop shadow as well. significantly reduce the size and the spread, because you don't want it to be that noticeable. Just want it to be there just because. And you can hit OK once you're done. The last thing we're going to do is just reduce the opacity for this as well. Set it to around 40, 45 is looking good. And now we are done with that. Now we can get into the good stuff. I think first we are going to add our NPC screenshot. So we got the screenshot of our NPC. I'm just going to drag him in here. And as always, you guess it, we are going to have to crop him out. So we're going to hit enter for now. We're going to go to the handy dandy pen tool right here. And first of all, we're going to right click this guy. And we're going to rasterize the layer so that we can actually edit it. Now we can hold alt and scroll up to zoom in very close so that we can be more accurate with our clipping. And just take your time, you know, and listen to some music, by the way. Like, you can always listen to music in the background while you're making the thumbnail, because from my experience, when I listen to music and I'm doing something like studying or something that takes time, I tend to operate faster, and it just like triggers something in my brain that makes the result even better. So I highly recommend that. Maybe just to some chill hop music, you know, or whatever you like to listen to. Obviously not some rock music, because, you know, thumbnails are a graceful thing. Now, if you can operate good with rock music, then I'm not saying that you can't listen to it. I do not offend. That is just your preference. But we're just here for the experience, and that's how I roll. All right, last connection to join everything up, and boom, now we can zoom out. Now we're going to right click inside of our selection, and we're going to click make selection. The feather, I always set it to 1.5, or you can go ahead and set it to 2, and do not worry about anything else here. Now we can hit OK. We're going to hit Control X to cut this guy, and Control V to repaste him. Now we're going to make this background invisible, just disappear. And now we're going to select him, go to the move tool, and move him over here. Gonna hit Control T and just make him a little bit larger. And maybe rotate him. Yes, let us rotate him. Okay. And we can just work on him later. Now let's give him some neat effects. So we're gonna double click him. We're gonna give him a stroke. And if you haven't caught on by now, you should know which stroke we're going to give him. I'm just gonna make another stroke because I really want to save all the settings that I've made while experimenting with making this thumbnail. We're gonna select stroke. We're going to change the fill type from color to gradient. Now the gradient options appear, and we're gonna change the gradient to the rainbow gradient again, and we're going to hit OK. Now we're gonna reduce the size a little. And the great thing about strokes is that you can also change the opacity for him. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to reduce the opacity to 50%. We're going to go back to the drop shadow, and we're going to increase the size of the drop shadow, maybe increase the spread a little. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is give him an inner glow. Now I've already gone ahead and set the inner glow to overlay, so that instead of just looking regular like the white just on top of it, it has this phenomenal effect on it, so that when you zoom in, you will see that it's like his very being is glowing, and the glowing looks more realistic. If there's a yellow part of his body, it's like a mix between the white, but the white kind of incorporates that color that it is on top of, and that's the effect that we are getting when we set it to overlay. Definitely something I'm going to be utilizing more when I make my thumbnails. Let's see what happens if we add a satin. This is just straight speculation right here. If we add a satin, it makes the inner glow more pronounced. So I think I'm just gonna set the satin. Just copy down everything you see here, and when you're done, you can hit OK. And when you do set the inner glow to overlay, there's no need to reduce the opacity because then you'll see it less. Just set it to 100%. Now let's add some laughing emoji. Let's add 2. So let's go over here, and I just looked this up, laughing emoji iOS, the Apple version online. You don't have to go out of your way for anything. We're gonna reduce his size a little, make him, this is a good size, and we're just gonna place him here, and we're gonna go back, gonna go and move him under him, and we are going to give this laughing emoji a stroke. So we're gonna give him the white stroke, size 16, and drop shadow. Let's increase the spread just a little bit. Okay, now that we have all of our effects on this, we can control J to duplicate everything about this laughing emoji and put him under here. So in total, there's going to be 2 laughing emojis. Let's control T this one and rotate him a little bit, and then do the same for this. Rotate him in the opposite direction. All right, awesome. And you can always make sure everything's good later on. Now let's add some text. We're gonna add some text. So select the top layer. We're gonna go to our text tool, and I'm using the Muro font for this tutorial. All right, so first of all, we're going to start off with the top, Sky Wars. Let's change that color. And we are going to, I always like to start off with very large text so that if it's too big, it'll always be too big, so that we can make it smaller and so that it doesn't look pixelated if it's too small and we have to increase the size. So always remember that tip, and remember that you got it from yours truly. All right, so we got this, and now we're going to add some things. Double click common things that he keeps on using in all of these effects on just one thumbnail. We're gonna give him a drop shadow. Copy down everything you see here. You see I have a second drop shadow so that I have like 1 drop shadow for images and 1 for the text. This one is larger. The distance it's set to so that it makes it appear as if it has some depth. And now we're going to go and give it a satin, and then we're going to go to the gradient. Now we're gonna set this gradient to black to white. We're gonna hit OK. I'm gonna set this to 90 degrees. It should be set to 90 by default. I just have it at that because that was just me. And now we can go to the inner glow. The inner glow will be set to overlay, and let's increase the size. We actually need to change how this inner glow looks. We're going to change the choke, increase the choke, not too much though, and then increase the size so that it has this effect. And the opacity of the gradients, actually, you can leave it at this. Leave it very high. We can hit OK, Control T, make this a little smaller. Now it looks like that. Actually, making it smaller warped some of the effects, so that means I have to in turn reduce the size of the inner glow so that it goes back to that effect. We can hit OK. Now we're going to type up funny. Gonna raise the font size again to about 400. Funny, because this font is very small compared to all the other fonts, despite its high size that you set it to. Now we're gonna hit the check mark, move it over here, center it along Skywars, or we can do that later. And now we're going to right click this, hit copy layer style, and right click funny and click paste layer style, so that all its effects from Skywars go onto funny. The only difference is that we're going to double click funny, and we're going to go to that gradient. We're going to change the gradient, set the opacity all the way, and we're going to go to this gradient. Now this is a rainbow gradient, except that I've made some adjustments to it, and it's gonna has all the same colors as the regular one, just basically move all of these sliders that you see to the locations. I moved the yellow closer to the red, the green farther away from the yellow but slightly closer to the baby blue, and then I made the red wider. You're going to see how it looks right now. Hit OK when I change the angle back to 45. So let's set that to 45, and it has this diagonal effect. And it looks okay. I did not perfect it, but hopefully you guys are able to perfect it. Now we also have the inner glow, and of course it's going to be set to overlay again. I'm going to increase the size or reduce the size. The choke, let's play around with it for a bit. And the satin, we're actually going to have to turn up the satin so that you can see. Oh my gosh, that looks beautiful. So turn up the satin, copy down everything you see here, the opacity for the satin, set it to 45, 46, and now the inner glow should look like a real nice inner glow. The choke, keep that low, the size, yes, and now you can see that this looks better than it would have from before. And now let's center this baby, center it. All right, that'll have to do. Now the last thing we're gonna do is put moments, Skywars funny moments. So let's get this typed up. Moments, hit the check mark, and we're just gonna copy this effect of the Skywars onto moments. So let's just do copy layer style, paste it onto funny moments, and that's it. Control T, make it smaller, move it down here, center it, everything's aligned, hit enter, boom. Except that in his thumbnail, the moments, you can actually see the gradient much, so I think I'm just going to increase the size of the inner glow and then reduce the opacity a little bit of the gradient itself. Let's take down the choke. Okay, now it adds a little bit of diversity in the end. Now, the last thing we're going to do with the text is give it the warp, the handy dandy warp. If you've seen a couple of my tutorials in the past, you know where we're going. First off, we're going to hit Control T for Skywars. We're going to go up here, and we're going to select this icon to get into the warp. Now this drop down menu appears here. We're going to click it, and we're just going to give it an arc. And then we're going to reduce the bend. I always like to set the bend to around 10. Or maybe even 12 in this one. Yeah, let's set it to 12. And we're just going to do relatively the same thing to the remaining two text. So we're going to select funny, Control T, click this icon, go down here, select arc, and then set it to 12. Set it to 12. Check mark. And that's it. Now let's just move everything down a little. I'm gonna move funny down a little bit because sometimes when you set the warp, it makes it do some funny business, and we don't want that funny business. All right, there we go. And now let's select all three of these. Control T, and just reduce the size a little bit. And finally rotate it just a bit. Gonna move it over here. All right, awesome. Now I'm actually gonna take the NPC and the two laughing emojis and drag them above the funny moments and move them a little to the left. All right, and actually move it down a little or up. Take the second laughing emoji and move him a little over here. First one, just adjust him, and then finally add a little bit more of rotation to our text and move it up. So this is the thumbnail. This is the finished thumbnail basically. And yeah, we're done. I'm just gonna make the final adjustments. Like, I noticed that I had forgotten the exclamation point for moments. I'm gonna hit the check mark, and I think I'm going to reduce the size for funny just a little bit. Okay, and then move it up here. Make sure it's all centered up. Move moments up. The move tool. And awesome. Select all three and move them to the right. All right, and we're done. This is a pretty fun looking thumbnail, and I would hope that it would be, since this is a funny moments thumbnail. And this is it. If you guys made it this far, if you completed it, pat yourself on the back and give yourselves a round of applause. And feel free to @ me on Twitter with your finished progress of your thumbnails that you have made by watching my tutorials @OSOFlex. Just tweet them at me, at the image, and I'll see them and I'll comment on them. I'll be like, nice work. Oh, you did a great job. And it doesn't matter if it looks bad. It just matters is that all the effort that you put into making that thumbnail and the fact that you used my tutorial or tutorials to make it. But on that note, I will leave you guys to just continue to enjoy the rest of your day after watching this video. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.